I don't know anyone who doesn't love the practice of manifestation. Now, I do know some people feel very frustrated when they try to manifest things in their life. And for decades, there's been these questions of how do I get what I want? How do I practice the art of manifestation? There's been books and movies and all kinds of things. Well, I'm excited today to bring to you a specialist in manifestation, and his name is Scott Haug. He has been teaching on YouTube and podcasts and with clients, various platforms for several years, very visual in his teachings and how he kind of shows you. And today, Scott and I are going to talk about how to use our mindset and other parts of us to manifest. Scott, I'm really glad that you're here.
Yeah, thanks, Leah, for having me. This will be great.
Yeah. So there's always that standard question of how did you start doing what you're doing? And I really kind of hate that question. But in this case, I'm curious of how you honed in on manifestation for what you wanted to deliver and bring to people in general.
hmm I think it starts with a deep curiosity and interest. It was something that I think personal development, in a broad sense, saved my life. I
Mm.
was really down and out, really didn't like myself all that much. No particular reason besides trauma that was reenacting in my body. And personal development gave me some light. It gave me some motivation. It gave me like, okay, I don't have to stay in this dark spot, right? And it evolved into I probably like most people watch The Secret. I was like, okay, there's something cool here, right? It seems ancient. It seems like there's some unknown about this. And I remember going down that rabbit hole and Bob Proctor featured on The Secret. He actually became my first teacher and mentor. And he always talked about paradigm shifting, shifting your subconscious and manifesting what you want. I was like, how cool would it be if it's true that you could manifest great things into your life? So that curiosity spurred the interest of going down that rabbit hole, understanding it, practicing it, and trying to bring those results in. So that's
That's
where it all
awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned The Secret. I mean, you kind of have to mention The Secret when we're talking about manifestation. And I
began.
always say when I'm having these conversations, even that, as interesting as it was pretty pedestrian or, just kind of dumbed down for mainstream consumption, which a lot of things in the media are. And I think there's some wonderful tools there, and there's so much more to manifestation, at least if you ask me, and I think you probably agree with that too.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
See, I like, so what I'm trying to do right now is, I think you said it very well visually, is taking it, all these complex topics, and how can we make it simple? Because previously as well, I was an engineer. So my mind works in like, how do we break this down into a step-by-step repeatable process? But also, how do we go deep with it? Like, how
Mhm.
do we really understand the essence of the energies of manifestation? And I think it can happen for those who are called to it. You can go deep, but also keep it simple so it's not overwhelming or complex at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I'm a visual person, so I tend to just learn better visually or I absorb it. I feel like my whole
Sure.
body sense absorbs something more when I see it visually. And also, I think even that component of visual and the understanding of it in a different way, it uses more of our senses. And that's kind of one thing I wanted to get in with you because I know, you and I and a lot of people talk about mindset and the mindset and manifestation. It's necessary, but there's also all these other parts of us, energetic parts of us, emotional parts of us, frequency parts of us that are part of the manifestation. So maybe you'll clarify this, but I think it's dangerous to just try to tell someone how to think in order what to get, just to
Mhm.
use your mind to make change. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's spot on. From my understanding, from all the experience I've worked with clients and myself for so long now, is that you have a self-image, identity, self-concept that is really housing what you're going to manifest into your life on an automatic level. And then the day to day, yeah, we could shift our thinking and visualize, use affirmations, gratitude lists, all these great practices. But it's what you're embodying at a core frequency that is most of these things coming into life. When we start looking at how do I change my identity? So if I want to have seven figures come in a business, or I want to have a better romantic partnership, what is it that I'm going to embody as a all my thoughts, all my feelings, all my actions all at once? Now that's a lot of stuff. So we look at an aspect of what's one aspect of my core frequency I can start embodying, like prosperity consciousness. Okay, maybe money is the thing I'm trying to manifest in. instead of just thinking day to day, let me change my thoughts or let me do a practice, what is it that I'm going to do to start building a mansion of prosperity in my mind? What would that look like? Okay, well, we got to lay a foundation. Let's lay the first floor. Let's put up some walls. Let's figure out the window situation. And when you can come at it like that, it becomes a task that's doable rather than trying to fix the surface stuff. But then tomorrow you're like, well, I just manifested like $500 in bills and this isn't working for me, right? Those phrases will come in. So you could start seeing it from that wavelength. It becomes easier and more doable. So,
Yeah, it's well, what you're saying is like you're actually co-creating your reality because you're building it in real time, or at least in time right in front of you with
mm,
what's available from the universe. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think the idea of this patience is a big block I see a lot of clients go through, which is when the phrase comes up, it doesn't work, or law of attraction's
Mhm.
disappointing, or any of that. What I see it as is think 90 days from now, what you'd like your life to embody. Instead of this urgent Amazon package same day coming in, like,
Right.
I need my money today, right? I need my stuff today. If you start thinking more long term, more down the road, and you start building, it's like planting those seeds you hear in personal development. Let me plant the seeds. And if we're planting a tree today, tomorrow you're not stomping down on the ground like, where are you? Where are you? You get the idea that it takes sunlight, nutrients, water, time to actually have it manifest in the physical realm. So if we can start planting seeds today and say, that's my objective, what I can control, not the uncontrollables, you'll start to have this amazing patience and it becomes a game rather than a hassle. And when it becomes a game, it's what are games? They're fun, they're puzzles, they're let me see how it works and experiment. And in that place, then things can really take off because your
Yeah,
energy is
well,
letting and allowing.
right. And again, you're kind of embodied with it. I love that you mentioned that kind of quick, the dopamine hit, like the Amazon shopping, the I want what I want and I want it now. To me, that's the exact example of what I mean when I say we need to, of course, engage our consciousness and our higher mind. But that dopamine hit is part of the ego mind or part of, the functional part of our brain that we rely on. And it feels nice and it feels good. But there's something much deeper and much more potent when we bring our energy down into our heart space, down into our sacral chakra, and create from there. We're not meant to create from our mind all the time. We're meant to make decisions and, rationalizations and so forth from our mind. But when we're creating, and as you just mentioned, co-creating, if we're in our body, if we're in our heart and that passion and that place of not just wanting something, but like feeling it, that to me is a very different energy.
I love what you're saying here. I think it's the key to manifesting everything you're wanting
Yes.
because when it's surface thought doesn't create. So if I say the word debt out loud, people get fearful. Oh my God, I'm going to start manifesting debt. It's not how it works, right? It's more of the intensity of your emotional place with the actual visioning, with those images in the mind that's going to create. When you're in your heart, it's a love. It's
Mhm.
a deep gratitude for what is to become, but already is in a different dimension, right? It's a different way of not overthinking, panicking. Where is it? How is it going to come? And more, I already have it. It's right here. I feel good without it. I feel good with it. And when it happens, it happens. And that natural frequency is where we all want to be because when it's natural, it's expected, and that's when it manifests. So I love that you're saying it's in your body, it's in your heart, much
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to bring up is I think a lot of people lie to themselves a lot of times.
Mm,
And so even this notion, okay, who wouldn't love an extra $1 million laying around? I mean, who wouldn't love an extra $1,000 laying around, right? But people get in sometimes into this I want things that if I really question them, like gun to head, would you rather have this or that? They don't actually have that heart desire connection for the thing that they're even trying to get into their life. Maybe they're trying to get that thing out of fear or out of ego or out of, some other reason. But we lie to ourselves. I mean, do I want a yacht? Yeah,
mm.
it'd be nice to have a yacht to float around in, but honestly, do I want a yacht? no, I don't want the hassle. I wouldn't even know where to. No, that's not for me, you know? So I think sometimes people create false illusions out of their ego state or out of some kind of fear state. And when we're doing that, we're just making it harder for ourselves to actually get the things that we resonate with and that truly matter to us in our heart and our soul.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's a chase in those cases for significance, a chase
Yes.
for some void we're filling. If we have a yacht, we see ourselves on there and we're like, I won in life. And people are going to cheer me on, congratulate me, maybe throw me a parade like Scott, Scott, right? Or Leia, like this false sense of it's going to fill something inside of me. And
Yeah.
then that lie comes in because we're not being authentic. So it's almost like the diversion of our soul that happens often very early on. We're trying to fill this, but really what we're looking for is that deep connection. And if we can find that deep connection, you're going to manifest in a lot more flow because a lot of things that you're not chasing anymore, you're not putting your energy out there. Oh, I need the $1 million a year, or I need that. And I was in that for sure a couple of years ago until I really understood what I was trying to fill. It's like,
Mm,
oh, once I get to this level, I'll feel like I made it. And even when you talk about other people that have gotten to those places, yeah, I was there and then nothing's different. Nothing happened. It's a false sense. So if you can find that wholeness first and then come from what do I really want? Well, I probably want freedom. I probably want to be able to travel, explore, adventure. Those are the things you really love. It's so easy to manifest the things you're actually really wanting.
yeah. Okay. So let's get into a little bit of the nitty gritty. You choose. We can talk about relationship. I don't want to talk about money right now just because that's, I think, overdone in the sense, but yeah,
Sure.
I know you have a ton of offerings and classes and so forth on that topic, which I would love to see more of because, I'd like to up my portfolio as well. But let's talk about either relationships or experiences or maybe even something like a job shift or something like that. When you're
Yeah.
working with a client, what are some of your first best practices to put them through?
Yeah. This is a great question. So, always first, I need to get a read of what are their deepest fears and things going on behind what they want. So we'll ask first and foremost an easy, clear question everyone kind of understands is what do you want in a romantic partnership? What are the qualities, characteristics, principles that that person lives by? If you want a job, describe it. What kind of salary level, location, work from home, work in person, right? We do have to get some sort of clarity to understand where they want to go. And then we want to look at the fears and their trends leading up into that point. So a step two to me is what have been recurring obstacles or challenges you've been running into in this specific area? Easy example for relationships. I always find men or I always find women that are in this theme anxious attachment, anxious avoidant, right? I always attract to jobs, have toxic environments, and I'm not valued, right? So, what is a recurring theme that's been playing out? Because there's the spiritual lesson that's been yet to be learned and therefore you keep manifesting things you don't want. Yeah.
Right.
So a final step number three is what is the core attachment that's creating this loop of recurring suffering? So it would be like once I finally have that romantic partner in my life, I'll finally feel complete. I'll finally feel like happy and I'll feel just amazing, right? Once I finally have that job, I would finally feel like I've made it, that I'm significant in freedom,
Mhm.
right? So I'm projecting what I am not feeling right now into these things.
Right.
And that creates this shadow. So in step three, we cover the shadow and we change it to once I'm attached to source, God, wholeness, then I'll feel complete. All the emotions that you're wanting. So it's all then let me connect with a higher substance, faith, whatever that is I believe in. And then we can start clearing out those tracks. It just gets really uncomfortable at that point for them, usually, because now
Yeah.
your whole paradigm, your whole being's rocked. It's different.
Yeah. And this is the part I love about the manifestation conversation. And I love that you're focusing on this in your work. And once you mentioned Bob Proctor, I figured you probably would be. But it's so similar to what I do working with clients, not focused on manifestation, but we're focused on healing and clearing emotional imprints and core wounds and establishing their spiritual connection and trust and, just a core sense of who they are in the world. And it's so similar. There's so many corresponding elements because, as you just stated, that's what's in the way for so many people. And why I focus on this thing of you can't just think yourself out of bed and into a healthy, happy, abundant life, right?
That's
You
right.
can, yeah, you can tell yourself all day long, I want this, I want this, I'm practicing manifestation. But if you have those deeper subconscious beliefs, the fears, the lower frequencies attached to all of that that are operating the majority of your day, you're just saying, you could be saying, bologna is purple and my name is Sam. Like you could be saying anything.
Right. And it doesn't land, right? You don't actually feel it to be true. And, a lot of the lack patterns, the imbalances that are going on really can be circled back, as I'm sure you do so well with your clients, going back to these childhood traumas or moments.
Right.
And a lot of people don't link it with manifestation. You hear so much law of attraction ideas, and they're not bad or good. It's just a lot of surface stuff like attracts like, think your way to it. And there's parts of those elements that work and that can be dialed in for sure for everybody. If you're obviously not thinking in a great place, those aren't going to correspond well. But when you go to the core wounds, why am I habitually thinking this way in the first place?
Right.
Why is it hard for me to accept abundance in the first place? If we
Right.
can get to the core of why, remove that core and change it out for wholeness, then those thoughts aren't even there. So it's almost like you covered 1,000 thoughts in one core issue rather
Hmm.
than trying to change 1,000 thoughts in a day. It's a very different standpoint. Great
Yeah,
correspondence.
it is. And just thinking about, I often take this perspective of how abundant the entire world, the planet that we live on, that we know of is, and not to mention all the other planets and ecosystems out there, but how abundant, like everything that ever could be is available. And the
Yeah.
only thing between other people experiencing that and us experiencing parts of that is our belief in ourself and our worth, and that we are either connected to it, could, should, would be, have it, worth it, what have you, and position ourselves in a frequency state and a belief state because
Yeah.
everything is available. And I think for a lot of people that are typically living out of that fear place, it's like that's all for other people. Other people can travel the world, other people can have three homes, other people can work for themselves. And I do, obviously, especially in this day and age, we have to recognize that there's a lot of people in the world that don't have access to clean water. They don't have access to food. They don't have access to half of the things that we have. And for us to even be having this conversation of I want more, when I guess that's the same conversation they may be having in there, but they may be having the conversation of I want more food to eat because I'm hungry every night. I don't know where I'm going with this really, aside from now I'm thinking about, well, how do we rectify the difference between people who have next to nothing and us who have homes and shelter and food and everything, choices. How do
Yes.
how do we justify that between one another?
Yeah. I think a great practice that starts with finding evidence of abundance in your world right now, but changing the definition of what worthiness and deserve. Am I worthy of all these houses? Am I worthy of this when somebody doesn't have clean water? That conversation doesn't happen to me at this soul level, at the God level. Because my firm belief in this is that we're all doing this to learn spiritual lessons, karmic lessons, things on the planet while we're here in the physical life. So the very fact that somebody else is suffering or struggling, or I was suffering and struggling at some point, led me to the opposite coin of the gifts that came out in life. Right now, obviously, that's a fine line because then you talk about really big things that might be really devastating to people. And I'm not saying that we can't go and help and do those things to
Right.
be all coordinated together. What I'm trying to say with this is that if we can take off the worthiness and deserving this conversation and just go to how can I find abundance and collect it with where I'm at today? Okay, there's an abundance of oxygen, there's an abundance of books and wisdom, there's an abundance of color on my walls, there's abundance of electricity. If I can start training my mind to not have the conversation about ego and me, but more so training my mind, just find abundance everywhere. You'll think less about other people and comparing, and more building the consciousness that would be the godly consciousness to manifest in, right? So I have all my clients when they're especially worthiness, deservingness, and comparing, just take your mind, how many things, 10 things today you can find in abundance and be creative. And then you go on that 10 days in a row with 100 pieces of evidence. You'll start changing where your center is. And that's really, I think, the biggest thing there.
It is. And it also helps to change that energy of people who feel guilty in abundance because there
Yes.
are people starving and so forth. And the only way I can rectify any of that is to stay centered and aligned with not receiving abundance for my personal gain, but to be available and accepting of abundance because I trust myself to therefore then share with others. And when I have more, I give more, right? It's that whole, I think Oprah and several other people have said things along those lines, but it's true. It's when the ego gets involved and we're not staying connected to our Christ consciousness or a higher consciousness or source or what have you, then now we're into selfishness. I want, give me, give me, give me. That's a different energy. That's not what we're talking about. I don't think that's what you're talking about, correct?
Yeah, correct. And, with this whole guilty side, this is such a great topic because if we really go to the core, what if, and this is a good what if because who knows who can really say different beliefs and things, but every time you find abundance, what if you're healing the world more?
Right.
What if you're healing your ancestor line? I did the plant medicine iboga actually last week for my first time. I
Oh.
did ayahuasca before and things as well. And what it was really showing was how all of us are connected in an abundance way
Hmm.
that when you heal a trauma, you heal wound, you're in more light. The world is influenced by that. So, what if by you becoming more abundant energetically, you're shedding more abundance on the world so that more people can improve on it, right? It's such a great wavelength because then you're like, absolutely, I want more abundance because now I'm helping the world as I help me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's a beautiful analogy because even not in the physical, like physical stuff, like you're giving back in a physical kind of way, but just in a way of light, a way of energy. And it is so true. And it made me think of a very simple thing. I have this relationship with a young boy for a long time and like as a sponsor, right? He's in Ethiopia and so forth. And it's a beautiful company that organizes education and all kinds of things. And what I do for him is very, very minimal, truly, if you look at everything relative, but it's important and it's changed his life. And so when you were saying that, I was thinking, however small that amount is, I don't even think about the amount anymore because it was a commitment, right? But the energy of it, and when I'm energetically tuned in to him and giving from my heart space and supporting from that place, it's usually because I'm feeling abundant or I'm feeling open and available. And in that way, I want to pour out. And
Yeah.
he feels that, and he feels it, and he feels it not. I've gotten letters from him that said, Where have you been?" And what he's saying is, "I don't feel you." And he's right. I'm like, you know what? You're right. I had a hard year last year and I wasn't in that abundant space that at that time or what have you. And so when you were saying that about how we affect somebody, that's obviously a very personal, very direct experience, but that's what's happening all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Our friends, our family, our colleagues, our neighbors, our community, they sense us, they feel us, and we contribute or we don't.
One great thing Bob Proctor had as a practice, he'd said at every seminar was send three people love today.
Hmm.
And it's the same idea, whether it's a friend, a family member, that energy's all present right now. And whether it's Ethiopia, whether it's in Asia, whether it's in Europe, whether, if all energies right now and I send good thoughts, good love, feelings, proper abundant energy out to people, they not only affect it, but half the time you also get a text or a call or an email randomly, right? It's like, oh, that's all coincidence. Well, if it's all connected, what if it's not?
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a great example.
It is. And I love talking about abundance in the terms of love and energy more so. And that's why I said let's not talk about the money just for right now and I know money is just energy and it's wonderful and all that. But when you really feel abundant, you're not feeling money. you're
That's right.
feeling, right? You're feeling gratitude, you're feeling love, you're feeling connection.
Yeah, it's a different embodiment. I have all my clients tell me first, how would you define money? How would you define? And usually it's always cash, bank accounts, luxury, right? But when I say when you really get to it, when you have a lot of money or wanting a lot of money, what are you really after? I'm after a feeling of feeling freedom. But let's really define that. What's freedom? Feeling like I don't have to stress today, feeling like I can do what I want to do on my own schedule, feeling like I can hang out with and connect with people I want to connect with. Was it about money at all? Maybe a little bit. They're like, well, I do want to buy this thing. Okay, well, once you buy 10 things, you're probably like, I'm good. I don't, what else am I going to buy? Right. It really comes down to, I think you said it so well, that abundance really is an embodiment. It's a level of peace. It's a level of wholeness, way more so than money. And when you define it in that realm, and that's your objective, it's much easier to manifest what you're looking for. And then money will just come as a byproduct because you flow in. And obviously, you have to take action. That's a huge thing that a lot of people say, do you have to take action? Yeah, you have to build your business or go get a new job. Or if you're looking to bring somebody in your life, maybe go to the yoga studio that they, you might be at it together, right? So, yeah, take action, but you take action from a place of feeling the abundance now. If you're feeling abundant, you're doing the things out of joy rather than to get. And when you're doing it out of joy, that's when things really start to open up and
Yeah.
unlock, I think. So
So I'm probably the worst business person you'll ever meet. Like hands down. I'm not motivated by money and also I don't have a business mind, really. Some people think I do just because I do a lot of things, but I don't.
sure.
It's overwhelming to me and I don't like it. And and like my father and other people are like, "How do you make a living?" Like where and honestly, Scott, I don't know how it all works. I don't know. I know that I see clients and I know, I've written a couple books and I know I do retreats and that's whatever. But if somebody like I have year to year, month to month, I really don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going on. I just try to say
Yeah.
yes because I love what I do. And when I'm working, I feel great. I feel I'm connected. I'm helping people, all the things you just said about abundance. So I say yes to whatever I can. And it's not a smart business move at all. But I will say this, probably about 3 or 4 years ago, I felt spirit say to me, you don't have to worry about money anymore. Now, does that mean I'm wealthy? Not by a long stretch, but there's a certain trust. And I'm wondering if for a person like myself, if I'm helpable by someone like you, or maybe my organic kind of spiritual trust way is just a good way because I try to stay in that higher state of yes and availability and abundance as much as possible.
Yeah. This is I chuckle too because I was on the more of the opposite side, just more of the masculine embodiment of like really, really structured and not
Mhm.
enough flow and trust, right? So, anybody listening in, I think that sometimes we find on these spectrums, but we all have masculine and feminine inside of us, and they're all right. It's all the right places, and being available is number one. Am I available for what's coming through in the first place? So I do think what I've experienced is that we can dance a little bit more with the energies and have both play out a little stronger. And just seeing, for me at least, what was blocking me from more of the feminine flow approach. It was all there always comes down to some sort of fear, some sort of block in there. And what was for me when I was trying to step in the flow is like a fear of my needs and wants aren't going to get met if I don't have a structure and a calendar. That was circling back to a childhood. That's how it was for me, that like so my needs and wants were blocked for various things and traumas, right? So what I was able to do is do a little bit of healing on that and say, how could I embrace just 5% more flow in my calendar today, or 5% more flow of like, this is what I feel like doing instead of I got to get to the gym because this is the exact day and the exact time, which that's how it used to be. So that really helped me open up to a little bit more of life flow,
Mhm.
which helps me manifest even better because that's manifesting to me as both energies, but a lot of feminine because it's a lot of letting and allowing and surrendering.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't good at that for so long.
Mm.
So I do think that if we can rebalance, it's a little bit easier to play, the whole ball game rather than one or the other. But that would be my take, just from experience on being able to move it a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
So in my way, I would need about 5% more structure, perhaps. Like it's okay to open my bank account and take a look at what's going on. I
Yeah.
literally, I do it every now and then. And I know that. I know I need that, but there's similar to you. I'm not sure if I could identify or pinpoint the fear about that, but maybe I think I would get into some kind of, is it enough? Do I have enough in there? Do I have enough happening this week? The comparison and so forth. So if I don't look, then I don't think about that. So I just keep going with my little dance that I've got going on.
Yeah. So here's a great practice for this. I use it all the time for myself and clients. When you open your bank account, if you look at the number and it causes any anxiety, there's something we worked on. That's at least what I see with the clients and myself, because I kept doing that. But when I see the number, if I can actually observe my nervous system recalibrating every day, maybe do it for 5 days in a row, and you watch your nervous system calibrate to the idea, you observe the thoughts that might come up. Is there enough? Oh my gosh, should I be doing more? Observe the thoughts and allow the nervous system to meet those thoughts. And then over the 5 days, the idea and the objective is, can I get my nervous system a little bit higher than the thoughts? So, okay, now I'm feeling calm while the thoughts are going. And then you ask the thoughts, where are you from? At that point of calmness, it'll usually say something like, well, I'm from your mother, or I'm from your father, or you could say something like, what age are you? And it'll be like, oh, I'm 7. Oh, now I see there's something connecting there. And then you say, okay, you're age 7. What's making you feel unsafe right now? I'm feeling unsafe because I don't have certainty that this is going to happen, or I'm feeling unsafe because of this, right? So the number in the bank is almost always the unsafety feeling that may
Mhm.
be arising. I'm not okay. And then when we can recalibrate that, you look at the account and nothing happens anymore,
Yeah.
then it's really recalibrated. It's a great practice, a great exercise. I do it all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I thought you were going to say just look at the number and put a zero behind it. No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
right. As long as those things, as long as it feels good, and
Yeah.
it feels loving to do so, great. Because you can visualize, an extra zero, extra 5 zeros, right?
Mhm.
Really being in it. But again, it goes back to, if we don't believe it, okay, well, we got to really work on the belief, or what is really stopping us in the first place from
Mhm.
believing.
Sometimes one practice I made up for myself is whatever, like if I'm looking at the bank account, for example, or just what I make this week, if I visualize if I had one single dollar bill for all of that money just laid out, how much that is.
Yeah.
Like it, because it's not the comparison to other people, but I think we get so numb anymore of just these big rounded numbers or what have you. And if you really stop and think, just like the same thing when I host retreats and so forth, right? At my home, I can only have a small group. And of course, I love to reach as many people in their lives as possible. So I love big groups, but at my home, I can only handle, 10 to 15 people. And it seems like it's such a small number until you stop and become very mindful of there's one person, their whole person. There's a second whole person, and 10 whole people, that's a lot of people. That's a lot of lives. That's a lot of history. That's a lot of everything. I think sometimes our perspective too of just like really looking at how much every little thing is, every penny, it's just so much.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great exercise, because I mean, you take $1,001 bills. I mean,
Yeah.
it's starting to fill up your table, right? And then, well, 10,000, right? And you see all this, it changes your outlook.
Yeah.
Digital numbers are so different, compared to 100 years ago. You're taking a look at the coins or the money,
Right.
but it really
And that
gets a
way,
different.
it's another way we've gotten disconnected. I mean, can you imagine if we had $10,000 of like a gold bar? That's a heavy gold bar, or however many gold bars it would be.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. So tell me something personal. What's one of your favorite things that you've manifested in your life?
Hmm. One of my favorite things was an experience that I had. I always wanted to like start meeting some of the speakers in the personal development arena. And so I wrote down, doing my 5-step process, I do like where you write it down, you visualize as if you have it and you feel it and everything we've been talking about. And I said, I'm going to meet somebody like semi-famous, not a celebrity like an actor, but like semi-famous in the industry one day. And I felt it. I felt like I was shaking their hand and saying, oh, I appreciate your work so much and I'm honored. And this was maybe like 2 months prior to me meeting this person. So leading up to it, I let go. It's like, it's okay. It'll happen when it happens. And one of my buddies, I was living in LA at the time. One of my buddies was living in Miami, Florida. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll go and visit, hang out, right? We'll just kind of, I've been to Miami one time, but let's go ahead and hang out. So I flew over there and we're hanging out. I flew in on Friday. Saturday says I need to go pick up some groceries. Do you want to come with me? Sure. We're just hanging out. And we walked down because we're in downtown to the Whole Foods, where this kind of brickle area in downtown. And we picked up the food and checked out, and we're coming out of the Whole Foods. I'm walking out of the front door, and on my left-hand side, I see somebody that looks like Les Brown, the motivational speaker.
Mhm.
And he walks past me, and I was like, no, this is just a Whole Foods. There's no way that was
Right.
Les Brown, right? So I go outside. I'm like, there was something inside of me. It was like not a voice that was different. It was my own voice, but it was like loud, like go find out, right? Go check. So I go back in. I can't find him anywhere in the Whole Foods, but it felt like, well, I'm just going to look to the left here. Maybe he went left. I go over to the left hand side, and there I see him. I'm like, that's definitely Les Brown. That's 100% him. So I go up to him and I'm saying, Les, I'm a huge fan. You started my personal development journey, your voice, your videos. It's like, oh, great. What's your name? And we started talking. And I said, I was a coach for Bob Proctor. He said, Bob's a great friend of mine. So we're talking back and forth for about 5 to 10 minutes. It was the most blessed conversation, very interested in me. And I was like, a light bulb came out when I was leaving Whole Foods. I said, that I just manifested that. I wrote that down 2 months ago. Somebody like Les Brown, I wanted to meet, and it happened. And that was such a pivotal moment because it didn't have to be substantial money or substantial things. It was like, set the seed,
Yeah.
let it go. I would have never guessed I was going to meet Les Brown in a Whole Foods grocery store in Miami. I don't even live there. These impossible things, they're possible. Just let it go and allow it.
Yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
And
It really
congrat.
shows you the synchronicities, that can line up.
Yeah, exactly. I think that that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Scott, so tell people how can we find you, work with you, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So if anybody's looking for just some like free visual stuff, go to my YouTube channel. I have tons of drawing videos that can kind of give you an idea of the basics, but also going very deep at the same time. And then if you want to get into like an intro, we have Prosperity Magnet on our school platform. It's a membership, super low cost. You can always upgrade to coaching, but it's a great way to just get daily action items and step-by-step processes. It'll be an easy way to get started.
And what's
So
your website?
it's scotthaug.com, which is spelled HAUG.com.
Awesome. And everyone will have Scott's information in our show notes and on the screen if you watch this on YouTube. Well, Scott, it's a pleasure to have you here. I love your work and you're a very present person and a calm, nice demeanor. So thank you for sharing that with everyone and helping people remember who they are and what's possible for them in their life.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. And your energy is outstanding. You're spiritually rooted so deeply. I can feel that. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And listeners, we're glad that you're here as always. Follow us on social media at Leah the Modern Sage and my website, leahguy.com for all my information, books, courses, and more. And we'll see you very, very soon. And I encourage you with all my heart to work with Scott in whatever capacity and practice the love of manifestation. How about that? Thanks, Scott.